Hi everybody, if you're watching this, chances are you know who I am, but I'm Pastor Shawn Brace. I thought I'd take a few minutes to explain just the ins and outs of something that I'm passionate about, missional communities. I'm going to share just 3 videos on, number 1, what are missional communities, why missional communities, and how of missional communities. I get a number of people who have been asking me about them and what they're all about. What I'm going to share with you is largely influenced by a man by the name of Jeff Vanderstelt and also a colleague of his, Caesar Kalinowski. They're out in the Seattle area. They have a lot of material on this that you can find out there, but I thought I would just share it in the Adventist context. And so I'm just going to share briefly right now what is a missional community. And the way I'm going to do that is, first of all, by explaining what a missional community is not primarily. So I find that just very quickly, it's not these 6 things, and that's a way for us to get a handle on what they are. So number 1, missional community is not a small group. Hopefully you can read my handwriting. Hopefully this is dark enough. But number 1, a missional community is not a small group, and that will become clear on what the significance of that is momentarily. But number 2, a missional community is not a Bible study. So a lot of times when we think of groups in churches, we think of small groups that meet to study the Bible. Again, these are what they're not primarily. It doesn't mean that a missional community does not involve these sorts of things, but they are not chiefly defined as a small group or a Bible study. Number 3, a missional community is not a weekly meeting. Sometimes when people talk about missional communities, they think of just like church service terminology. Like, okay, I got to go to the missional community. It's something you go to, but that's not what a missional community is. A missional community is not primarily a support group. Number 5, a missional community is not a social activist group. So, again, these things might be involved with missional community, but they are not primarily defined as these things. And then lastly, I would say, and I won't bother spelling this one out, but a missional community is not primarily a bridge to get people to the Sabbath morning worship service. Sometimes we think that it's just a way to get people to our Sabbath morning worship service, as though Sabbath morning was the apex of what it means to be the church. And that's simply not what it's designed for. Now, people might start coming on Sabbath morning to your worship service, but the Sabbath morning worship service is not the height of church life. So we've got to get out of that mindset. So what is a missional community? Trying to put it in positive terms, if this is what it is not primarily, a missional community, and this is what Jeff Vanderstelt, how he defines it, a missional community is a family of servant missionaries who are sent to make disciples who make disciples. So listen to that again. A missional community is a family of servant missionaries who are sent out to make disciples who make disciples. So it's very important that we understand all the terminology in that expression. So first of all, it's a family, meaning it's defined not by, again, its weekly meeting, although there will be likely weekly meetings, but it's defined as being a family. Just as your regular biological family is not defined as meetings, like, okay, our family has meetings every week, but it's defined as a connective group, a family that shares a common purpose, a common DNA, and that's what a missional community is. It's a family of missionary servants, and that's the other key part, a family of servant missionaries. So a missionary is a person who is sent out to impact the world around them with the gospel. And that's what a missional community is. It's a family of servant missionaries who are sent out for a purpose. And that purpose is not just social activism. That purpose is not to just get people to learn more about the Bible. Again, these things may be a part of it, and you will inevitably experience some of that in your missional community. But the purpose of the missional community is to have missionary servants sent out who make disciples. Of course, disciples of Jesus, that is the goal. But not only disciples, but disciples who make disciples. So I would say also that in many ways, a missional community is church on the street level, or church for the other 165 hours of the week. There's 168 hours of the week, and a lot of times we come to our church buildings on Sabbath morning. We're there for 1 to 3 hours, and then the rest of the week is disconnected from not only the gospel, but we're disconnected from one another. And so this is designed to bring people together in community throughout the week, and also on mission. So these are communities that are together as servant missionaries in a family who are going out on mission together. And that takes place during the other 165 hours of the week. So it's people, and I know a lot of people kind of find this phrase to be funny because it's used so much these days, but it's supposed to be a little community that, quote unquote, does life together. And we're involved in each other's lives. And sometimes there's planned meetings, of course. Other times it's just organic, spontaneous times. But you're hoping that the people in these communities, these missional communities, are reorienting their lives around each other so that they can express the gospel in word and in deed. Because our life as community, as we're on mission together, is the greatest apologetic that God has when God has a group of people who are on mission and disciples of His. I would suggest as well that it is actually the primary organizing structure of the church, of a church. When you think of church, you think of missional community. You don't think of the Sabbath morning worship service or worship gathering or what we call church. These missional communities are the primary organizing structure of the church. So that's pretty much the quick explanation. I'm trying to make these nice and short and sweet. But if you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me or to tweet me or whatever you need to do. I'll put the information there for you. Chances are, as I said, you already know me because this is mostly for those who have already queried me on these questions. But in brief, a missional community probably includes all these things because we are seeking, for example, to learn more of Scripture as we become more devoted disciples of Jesus. And of course, we'll get a small group together. It is a small group, but the difference is that a small group tends to be inward focused, whereas a missional community tends to be outward focused. It is primarily founded on mission rather than internal support, tying into support group as well. And of course, there will be some social awareness as you're reaching and serving and blessing the community, but you're not simply reaching the community just to reach the community. You're reaching the community and socially conscious for the purpose of displaying the gospel, living out the gospel, and being the embodied gospel to those in your community. So that's the long and short of it, and hope you've learned some. And don't forget to tune in for the second part, which will be why missional communities. Perhaps that's already self-evident, however, in your mind. But thank you.